What is up, wrestling fans? Richard Boudreaux here. Welcome back to episode number 10 of Pro Wrestling Slam for October the 27th, 2020 for ProWrestlingSlam.net, putting the pro back in pro wrestling. For today's episode, I'm going to take another fun stroll down memory lane. I'm going to talk about the ljn WWF Wrestling Superstars action figures. These action figures were definitely a staple for most young pro wrestling fans of the 1980s. So I'll give a brief description of the action figure line throughout the 1980s, and then I'll share my thoughts about what I thought of the action figure line overall. So let's get right down to it. So the WWF Wrestling Superstars action figures were first produced by 1984 by toy company LJN. So basically what had happened was that there were three big toy companies that were vying to get the license from Vince McMahon and the WWF. So you had LJN, Remco, and Galoob. Basically, Remco was the first to approach Vince McMahon with an offering. They offered Vince McMahon $10,000. Galoob came in and they offered McMahon $20,000. And then LJN was the last of the bunch, and they offered Vince McMahon a huge fee for licensing of $200,000. So unfortunately, Remco and Galoob were unable to compete with LJN. So that's how LJN won the licensing rights for the WWF Superstar action figures. So the figures were 8 inches tall and were made from solid rubber. So basically, the original concept of the figures were half the size, with a wire frame on the inside to make the figures posable. You can flex the extremities and whatnot. But the 8-inch sample figure was so well received by the various toy stores that LJN went to see, like Toys R Us, Kroger, etc., that it was chosen as the new standard size for retail sale. The figures were compared to some as dog toys because they were all rubber, and they didn't the new 8-inch action figures, they couldn't move at all or anything like that. So a lot of people compared them to dog toys. But the said design made the figures durable, and they withstood a lot of punishment from kids during play. So they could definitely take a beating, and they were real fun for kids of the 1980s. So the first 1984 Series 1 figure line featured Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Hillbilly Jim, the Junkyard Dog, the Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, Big John Studd, Rowdy Roddy Piper, and Superfly Jimmy Snuka. The Series 1 Andre the Giant figure had long hair, and subsequent Andre figures in later series had shorter hair that most wrestling fans remember. So the long-haired Andre, some wrestling fans may remember that figure, but LJN produced figures with shorter hair in subsequent figure series lines. So the 1985 Series 2 figure line featured Greg the Hammer Valentine, King Kong Bundy, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, George the Animal Steel, Paul Mr. Wonderful Orndorff, and had a short-haired version of Andre the Giant. So the 1986 Figure 3 series, 1986 Series 3 figure line, had the largest number of figures. It featured S.D. Jones. Both he had Hawaiian and red shirt variants. Bruno Sammartino, the British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith, and the Dynamite Kid. The Rock, Don Morocco, Jesse the Body Ventura, Mean Gene Okerlund, Classy Freddie Blassie, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Captain Lou Albano, Macho Man Randy Savage, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Corporal Kirshner, which had a beard and no beard variant. And I just got to say that I've been a wrestling fan for probably close to 40 years now, 35 years, and I cannot even remember Corporal Kirshner in the WWF at all. If you were to ask me, what's your favorite Corporal Kirshner match, or can you remember a Corporal Kirshner match from the WWF? I can honestly say I wouldn't be able to tell you. So Terry Funk, Jimmy Hart, and Tito Santana. So the 1987 Series 4 figure line featured Adrian Adonis, Ted Arcidi, Billy Jack Haynes, the Killer Bees, B. Brian Blair, and Jumpin' Jim Brunzell, Cowboy Bob Orton, the Hart Foundation, Bret the Hitman Hart, and Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Hercules, Jake the Snake Roberts, Kamala, Vince McMahon, Mr. Fuji, Ken Patera, Coco Beware, Miss Elizabeth, the both pink and gold dress variants, the King Harley Race, and Outback Jack. So the 1988 Series 5 figure line, which was the last line released by LJN, featured Bam Bam Bigelow, One Man Gang, Hulk Hogan. Now, there were two different variants of this type of Hulk Hogan. He had a different pose as well. He had a white Hulkamania tank top, boots and knee pads, and a red headband, and red Hulkamania tank top, yellow boots, and red knee pads. The Doctor Style Slick, the Big Boss Man, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the Honky Tonk Man, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, a WWF referee, just a generic referee with white and blue shirt variants, Johnny V or Johnny Valiant, Strike Force, Tito Santana and Rick Martel, and Demolition Axe. Now, I really don't know. If somebody wants to, hit me up on Twitter or shoot me an email as to why LJN never produced a Smash action figure, and that would have made Demolition. That would have been phenomenal for a lot of, pro wrestling collectors. So I really don't know why LJN decided not to do a Smash action figure. So somebody wants to hit me up and, tell me the reasons why, I'll be happy to hear that feedback. So LJN no longer produced the WWF Superstars action figure series after Series 5 due to the company being shut down by its parent company, MCA. So basically what happened there was that LJN made a very, very controversial toy weapons line, and these weapons were very, very realistic looking, and they made sounds, and these toy weapons were actually used in a string of bank robberies all throughout the United States. So MCA basically lost their shit and said, okay, we're shutting you guys down. So, and then LJN was purchased by video game company Acclaim Entertainment in 1990. However, the figures license was picked up by a Canadian toy company called Grand Toys in 1989. And this company, Grand Toys, was based out of the province of Quebec. And the figures were repackaged in the sought-after black card variants, but were only available in Canada. So some of the original blue card figures were added to the black card variant series, but some new figures were created as well, such as Haku, Warlord, Ravishing Rick Rude, and the Ultimate Warrior. So LJN, they also sold tag team sets, which had two figures in one box and featured the Killer Bees, the Hart Foundation, Strike Force, the Dream Team, which comprised of Brutus the Barber Beefcake and Greg Valentine, Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik, and Hulk Hogan and Hillbilly Jim. LJN also produced thumb wrestlers, featuring such wrestlers as Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, and most of the figures featured in the main 8-inch figure line. And the company also produced its original concept, Bendy's, which also featured most of the wrestlers from its 8-inch figure line. So in addition to action figures, LJN also produced a number of sets to use in conjunction with the action figures. They produced a WWF wrestling ring playset, which could be used with the 8-inch figures to simulate wrestling matches in a WWF ring, and a cage match accessory piece, which was sold separately, which could be attached to the ring to simulate cage matches. So those were fun additions to the LJN action figure series line. The wrestling ring is a sought-after toy for a lot of pro wrestling collectors, especially if it's in its original box, and it's worth quite a fortune on eBay and other outline outlets. So we're going to take a short commercial break, wrestling fans. We're going to hear from our friends over at anchor.fm. So stay tuned, because we'll be back in 30 seconds. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right, we're back, wrestling fans, with episode 10. I hope those of you who have checked out this episode, I hope you're enjoying it so far. So I'm going to bash on here. So I've just given you a brief history of the LJN Wrestling Superstars action figure line. So now I'm going to share my thoughts on what I thought of the figures overall. So, these figures, as I said at the top of the show, were a must-have for young wrestling fans in the 1980s, especially young WWF fans. And I had a large number of these figures when I was a kid. I really wish I had held on to them. Along with the WWF ring, which I said earlier is a very sought after, addition to the figure line. I had a lot of awesome memories playing with these figures when I was a kid, playing with, my friends in the neighborhood, having various wrestling matches, title matches, because with certain figures like Hulk Hogan, and with the tag team sets, you had the WWF World Championship title, you had the tag team title belts. So this was a lot when you're a kid, when you're 7, 8, 9 years old, playing with these figures was just absolutely phenomenal. So a lot of awesome childhood memories, with this action figure line. And when I was a kid, I was really, really impressed on how LJN took the time to make figures that looked exactly like their counterparts, and the amount of detail. For the 1980s, this was a big thing. Even though I was a kid, I was still really, really happy, buying certain figures like Hulk Hogan and the Iron Sheik, and how detailed the figures were. They looked exactly, like their wrestling counterparts. So, and basically, I'm really, really amazed that in the past few years, especially probably the last 4 or 5 years, the market, like the online market for these figures, has just exploded for vintage LJN WWF Superstars action figures, both loose and MOC. MOC, if you're not big into action figure collecting, MOC means mint on card. So basically, what that means is that any action figure that's in its original packaging, that the package hasn't been opened or hasn't been, the bubble itself hasn't been damaged or opened, like that's called mint on card. So, especially on eBay is a huge market for the LJN WWF Superstars action figures. So if you're a new collector, or if you've been collecting for a long time, you want to check out eBay, it just blows my mind how much some of these action figures are worth, especially the black card variants, the 1989 black card variants from Grand Toys. I mean, I've seen on eBay that certain wrestlers like Haku especially is the sought after action figure in that card line. And, mint on card Haku, you're looking at least $1,000 or more. I mean, I've seen some auctions online in the various Facebook groups I'm in that Andre the Giant in a black card variant, I mean, can go as high as $5,000-$6,000. So the market has definitely exploded for these action figures. So, I mean, if you've got these action figures in your attic somewhere, you're just remembering, hey, I've got a big box full of these, check them out. And if you want to make some quick cash on the side, just clean them up a bit, put them on eBay, and you'd be surprised how much you'd get for them. The market has really, really exploded. So those of you that, want to make a few extra dollars selling these action figures, do it now, because I think the bubble's going to burst probably another year or two, but definitely take advantage now while the, strike while the iron's hot. So, well, that's going to do it for episode number 10 of Pro Wrestling Slam. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed this stroll down memory lane. So you can check out the official website of Pro Wrestling Slam at prowrestlingslam.net. We always have the latest news in professional wrestling. We have a ton of interviews, both print and audio, with the likes of Jim Cornette, Scotty Riggs, Conan, and much, much more. You can follow us on Twitter at PW_Slam. So if you're big on the Twitter scene, you can follow us there on Twitter. Check out our official Facebook page at facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Slam, and check out our official YouTube channel, and be sure to subscribe for new weekly episodes of the Pro Wrestling Slam podcast. So just go to the YouTube search bar and type up Pro Wrestling Slam, and it'll be one of the first things that comes up. So be sure to subscribe for weekly episodes of the Pro Wrestling Slam podcast. Like I said, check out our official Pro Wrestling Tees store at prowrestlingtees.com/Pro Wrestling Slam. You can follow us on Instagram at instagram.com/Pro Wrestling Slam. And as always, you can check us out on our official podcast platform on anchor.fm. So that's www.anchor.fm/Pro Wrestling Slam. And we've just added Podbean to our list, our long list of podcast platforms that you can listen to the Pro Wrestling Slam podcast on. So that's prowrestlingslam.podbean.com. So that's prowrestlingslam.podbean.com. So, and like I said, leave feedback, whether it's positive or negative. if you enjoy the show, if there's some things on the show that you don't like, by all means, leave feedback. You can hit me up on Twitter. You can shoot us an email at prowrestlingslam2012@gmail.com if you want to leave any feedback about the episode overall. So, well, that's going to do it for episode number 10. I hope everyone has an awesome rest of your day. I will be back next Tuesday for episode number 11. So be sure to tune in next Tuesday and have an awesome day, guys. Take it easy.